This is how we roll, man. This is how we rock. This is how we win. This is how we roll, man. This is how we rock. This is how we win. This is how we roll, man. This is how we rock. This is how we win. This is how we roll, man. This is how we rock. This is how we win. This is how we win, man. This is how we rock. This is how we win. This is how we roll, man. This is how we rock. This is how we win. This is how we roll. This is how we rock. This is how we win. This is how we roll, man. This is how we rock.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the third round of the FTF Saturday Night Super Speedway Series, except it's on Fridays, as we are going to ride around the legacy version of the Daytona International Speedway that was scanned in 2008 with cars that are running from 1987. It should be a lot of fun. Blake McCandless, Justin Prince, and Zach Johnson down in the virtual production trailer. And the one thing that has been constantly crossing my mind here, Justin, as I've looked at practice, is these cars are out of control, and it's going to make for some really exciting racing tonight.
It's going to be some really exciting and wild racing, to say the very least, because there is minimal grip. A lot of bumps are going to be shuffling these cars around throughout the corners, and you have to be careful where you manage your runs, especially since we're carrying speeds of more than 200 miles an hour around down the straightaways, especially in the corners. You're going to have to be careful to make sure you don't slide up into those walls or spin around. So that's going to be a mix of balancing that speed and aggression, I think, to be able to come away with the checkered flag, Blake, tonight.
That is certainly the case when you come here to Daytona. The balance of speed and handling. Now, of course, they'll be in fixed setups here, so we'll all be running on the same speed or same handling, if you will. Well, one important thing with these cars in particular is the spoiler angle, which what I'm looking at for this setup is at 10 degrees. So that spoiler not going to provide these drivers a lot of downforce. You can even see it right there, how it kind of lays flat on the back end of that 32 machine. That is going to be great on the straightaways. It's not going to be so good when you get here, as you see even that Pennzoil machine doing just a slight slide there with Sean Butler through 3 and 4. It's going to make for a very drastic challenge for these drivers. We'll continue to load on in right now. We've run 2 races, as mentioned. This is the third round of the Super Speedway Series this season, and right now, by courtesy of his win all the way back at the iRacing Super Speedway a couple of weeks ago, Tristan Hagenstein right now currently holds the points lead.
Yes, indeed, by 58 points, in fact, over Cosman Ionescu at the moment. Then it's Ryan Naraki, who is 77 points back, and a tie for 4 of Sean Butler and Kyle Lawrence short so far. But for Hagenstein, he's been really good this season in the various different cars so far, Blake, where he's been balancing his aggression, but also wanting to make it clear when he is on the aggressive motions, he wants to stay up at the front to ensure those aggressive moves in turn work out. He's someone that likes track position, and it's worked out for him in most circumstances. After all, He is currently the only driver in the entire series with 2 top 5s in the first 2 races.
Well, that is going to be key. Of course, he got the win that first time, but when you think about plate racing and over the course of a long season, consistency and getting those finishes is going to be more important than anything else. And I think Hagenstein kind of embodies exactly what you want to do in a series like this to try and get that points championship when it's all said and done. But we'll continue rolling on with practice here in just a couple of moments. Qualifying going to be upcoming here very soon. But again, with a track combination, a car combination that is this difficult, when you think about what this series is, super speedway series, obviously you think about plate racing, you think about guys being stacked right on top of each other. Justin, that's not the type of racing that we are likely going to see tonight.
No, I don't think we're going to see massive packs, several layers deep, 3 wide across this racetrack. It's just not going to be how you see these cars react and how these cars function and race here on Daytona International Speedway. It's likely going to be the type of race where do you feel more comfortable against the bottom of the racetrack and try and run a more safer line, or do you want to try and run on the middle or top lines and try and gain positions and risk carrying a ton of speed while also risking sliding up in the corners into the safer barriers along these walls here at Daytona? The balance is going to be interesting on which drivers go for what strategies, especially for tonight's main action.
That is going to be interesting to see as the night moves along. So we'll go ahead. We're skipping ahead right here. We'll roll off with qualifying. And, you know, this is something that I have a lot of firsthand experience with myself, running these 1987 cars in qualifying. Much cooler here than when it was happening all the way back last summer. 76 degrees right now outside, makes for a 111-degree track temperature. But there is something to be said about how you qualify here. You typically think at Daytona, you're just going to go out and ride the bottom of the racetrack. And again, with the unique challenge that this car and specifically this configuration of Daytona provide, you're not going to be able to run right along the bottom to try to make up the most time.
Yeah, many drivers throughout practices tonight had actually been trying to run the middle of the top lines, especially when on their own, to try and, for one, build up the momentum, but for two, just that's where they felt more comfortable, it seemed, as cars and as drivers for tonight. So we might see drivers utilize those middle lines to try and get a run off the corner and off the banking, especially throughout the night. It's going to be important, though, to make sure you wind up enough speed for the second lap, I think, in particular, for some of these teams.
For sure, that second lap is going to be quicker. Even in these 87 cars, the fuel that you have in the race car seems to make quite a bit of difference. But I'd look for a couple of drivers that were pretty competitive in that E-Racer Firecracker 400 last year to be quite competitive in qualifying in this race. You think about Kevin McAdams, A.J. Henderson are a couple of names that come to mind when I think about guys that could potentially win the pole here. I know Michael Frisch is another name. He's taken well to these cars in other areas of iRacing, so you'd think he'd have to be one that you would want to watch as well. And with that second lap in mind, you can see Michael Frisch here working along his first lap. I think what you were talking about, riding along the top during that first lap, yeah, you see Frisch go up there by the wall. That is not something you don't want to avoid the bumps, but I don't think you're going to be running quite that high off the corner. But you even see how that car wants to push out to the wall, even when you're riding the high side there. It's a tough thing to try and manage.
It 100% is, and that's where that risk balance is going to come into play, I think, during the race itself for tonight, especially because you can see already you can't just simply stick it on the yellow line and go at the bottom of the racetrack. The track's not smooth enough for that. The bumps will shuffle you up the racetrack before you can get fully to that yellow line. So there is that balance we're going to have to see for the drivers tonight to try and handle this racetrack once we get to the race itself, and not just in the qualifying, as once again Frisch pushing up the racetrack as talked about.
That's kind of the line that a lot of drivers found in that firecracker to be so fast. There are so many bumps there in the center of the corner. You go just high enough to miss them, and then you try to get back. As you see Frisch there, not taking below the yellow line. He's going to go second fastest on the board, 44.3 flat, but he is beat by Sean Butler, who not only has the lead right now, he has it by a couple of hundredths. So a very nice lap there for Sean Butler as he takes the pole away. And by the way, a tie there for second place between Michael Frisch and Kevin McAdams.
Yeah, and Butler, keep in mind, carried a ton of momentum as we've seen on the warm-up lap, and we've seen how well dialed in he was in practice. McAdams has talked about not going to be too much of a surprise. Keep an eye, though, on some drivers, I think, like Clint Roberts for tonight, because they've started
Brian
off strong.
Hicks.
6 in points in. Yes, don't forget about him.
Yeah, Brian Hicks, that was a hard lick right there through 3 and 4, and I believe that was that was his first lap, so he does get a reset, and he'll have a chance to try and make that second lap work if he can get something down in time. Now, I don't know if he has time to get back around and start a second lap before the race would end, but a really nice, solid lap there put in by Sean Butler, somebody that, I know he really loves these cars. He drives them a lot, has a lot of experience with them, and I think that's the one thing that pays off in a race like this, particularly with how difficult this car is. Getting behind the wheel, because I think you and I can both attest, this car drives pretty much way different than any other car that's on the service. No power steering, bias ply tires. It is something that is unique of its own, and it's why with all these events you've seen with this car, the best in iRacing even can sometimes struggle with it.
Absolutely, and the tough part is with the no power steering is, say you go into the corner, you don't have a lot of experience with this car. You likely have the car actually wanting to rip the wheel out of your hands. That's how quick some of these bumps can whip around this race car, Blake, for this track. It's going to be difficult for some of these competitors if they haven't put in the time to prepare for tonight.
It's going to be really tough. I know my Logitech GT driving force, which has still been going strong for what is now almost 12 years, it probably hates this car more than any other car on the service just because of how much it gets to turn. But as we wrap up qualifying, Sean Butler is going to be your pole sitter. 44.274 is going to be the quick time for tonight. We mentioned that two-way tie for second between Michael Frisch and Kevin McAdams. Jake Poulin and Brandon Hawken will all round out your top 5. So a big split in this field between the top 5 qualifying times, and you look back, 5th on back to 10th, and even further back in the field, there are tenths of a second that separate this field, and I think that just goes to show you the gap in speed that this car can create.
Yeah, in the Gen 6 cars, you might see a separation of maybe 10th and a half, maybe 2/10 at the very most among the top 20 for those who qualify. For tonight, the separation is about half a second, down to a 44.7 recorded by Mikula in the 20th position. So this is the type of racetrack where, again, it thrives on drivers who have experience, as we were getting towards before, whether it's with the steering, whether it's with the slipping and sliding in the corners, and whether it's being able to control the momentum around this racetrack. It's going to be key, I think, though, to stay out of trouble for the drivers who may not have that experience tonight, since this is a massive field. 35 drivers expect to take the green flag tonight, Blake.
Is a large field, and again, it is really tough to handle these cars. And when we talk about experience, I'm fairly well versed in this car, so why don't we take a look right here on your screen. You can see these two cars running nose to tail. When you talk about this car, and we're right along board here with Corey Carpenter and Brandon Hawken, you see how close that Brandon Hawken can get to Corey Carpenter right here through the corner. That is so important. That air bubble in this car, I don't know what it is about this car, but when you're behind somebody, it pushes that car so far forward. Look at Brandon Hawken. He's not lifting, and he didn't catch Corey Carpenter. When you're that car behind, you have such an influence as now they're going to get into a huge wreck, and Corey Carpenter goes flying. But, of course, it's warm-up, so it doesn't mean a whole lot. But talking about this car specifically, having the car behind you makes such a difference if you're the car in front, not only in speed, but also you can take some air off the spoiler in the car in front and get them really loose when you enter the corner.
Yeah, we've seen this a couple times already throughout the practices in preparation for this race for tonight. I think this is going to be a difficult race, obviously, but it's also going to be one where you need to be smart with those types of moves as you talked about. So it's just going to be interesting who's going to play this out well in this race. Keep in mind that some of the drivers, even in a couple car groups, are still struggling to be able to get to the back bumper overall, as talked about, because of that difference in how this car functions in both the real world and the virtual world.
Yeah, you're going to need that offset if you're the car behind, kind of venturing off from directly behind somebody. You can see behind Kevin McAdams, that car that's kind of offsetting from him. That's exactly what you're going to want to see. But if possible, I would think that 3 cars that work really well together, if they get lined up nose to tail, again, these are the 87 cars, no restrictor plate. I would not be surprised if we saw 3 cars pull away from the field. And this isn't exactly what we saw a couple weeks ago in the Carnomaly 500, where you have so much speed, so much horsepower that you punch such a huge hole in the air when you're going 240, 250 miles an hour. As the leader, you can't really pull away. You can definitely do that with a couple of cars in this package, but just about 40 seconds left here in qualifying. You know, the one last thing I think we'd have to mention, Justin, with this is that shifting really comes into play here, because you have to hit that clutch pedal. This is no, as my granddad, Mr. 4-Speed, would say, there is no magic. You have to shift these gears, and that's something that even in the virtual world, these drivers have to get used to. It's not something they often do all the time.
Yeah, it's so easy with manual transmission in particular to get stuck in neutral, let's say, when you're trying to go through the gears, especially with how some of these drivers may be used to an automatic clutch of sorts, or more so the quick flip the gas pedal, go up to the gears. It's not quite that simple tonight. So it may catch some drivers off guard. It has caught drivers off guard in the past with these cars in some of the major events, keep in mind. But I think these drivers are all set for the challenges of Daytona tonight.
They are set for it, and oh no. Well, It is dark. It is dark.
This is a new one.
Yeah, this is there's not a whole lot of lighting on this track right now, but nevertheless, we're gonna roll through the starting grid right now. Sean Butler is your pole sit. Well, actually, yeah. I'd love to roll through it because you can actually see the cars. That's what's great. You can see the cars. It's the track that's kind of the issue. Yeah, you can get a nice little overhead shot right there. You can see the cars, but the track itself, that's kind of the issue right here.
This is gonna be interesting. Yeah, I'm not sure what to say. I'm surprised the lights aren't even turned on here, since it is 1:16 a.m. in sim time for this roll.
Well, it is on. I'm looking above the grandstands. The lights are on. It's just, yeah, you can see those aren't stars. Those are the lights on the track. But yeah, you can't. I mean, it looks like they're racing on Zenjoltis or something without lighting. Like, you cannot see the track. Obviously, once the pace car goes off, oh man, this is something. I gotta say. Have you ever?
No, I've never.
Oh man, so we see the lighting on the cars. We do not see the track. Right now, we are still rolling with the pace car. So, I guess at the end of the day, we're going to, pace car's going to roll off. And it looks like Sean Butler, who's our pole sitter, is going to take the pole here. Yeah, Bob Pockris did not pay the light bill for us tonight. So I think, or remember that incident a little while ago. where the backstretch lights turned off here. We gotta figure that out. Well, this is going to be something. You're not going to want to miss this. So pace car, the brand new pace car, which by the way looks fantastic, is going to pull onto pit road. Field is going to be under the control of Sean Butler in his 1987 Pennzoil Monte Carlo. And we are going to get going green here. Green flag is out, and we are racing here from the darkened Daytona International Speedway as they work across the grandstands here. This totally doesn't look like an NR 2003 crash comp, but nevertheless, Sean Butler into turn one, he leads them through.
I'm just curious on if the air cars can see each other. I don't think they can see the wall here. Some of them just drove into the fence.
No, they can't. We can see the sparks better than anything, but there is a huge accident here on the exit of the corner. Jack Painter is involved. You can see the smoke really well. That's a brand new update to iRacing. But yeah, I think Jack Painter, unfortunately, they were 3 wide, and they cannot see the corners here. So unfortunately, yeah, he just ran into the wall. Jack Painter got some damage. I think Ryan Pandascio, there's a little bit of a secondary wreck there that happened after. So the caution is out after not being able to make it through one corner or so. And now they are continuing to wreck under caution. And this is something. This is an event.
Wow. I think the whole field crashed. The whole field crashed.
It looks like most of the field is involved in this, but so just to give you an update, per the tower, a new session is being brought together, but it is going to have the same grid as what we had here. So obviously they'll add in the second car so that it'll be put on the old damage model, and then we will have the second grid come, or second server coming, but we will use the same grid that we just had in qualifying for this server. So this is really, I guess at this point, just waiting around and enjoying the darkness here at Daytona International Speedway, which again is kind of interesting because the lighting definitely wasn't an issue. I remember in previous updates or iterations to this track, you could run this version of Daytona at night. It doesn't appear as though that same lighting has carried over here, but nevertheless, we will get going here with the new server in just a little bit. But for now, just enjoying some pacing around here, I guess.
Wow. I think Mike McConville has the cleanest car left on the track, or did. So I guess everyone will get the chance to regroup here and try and figure out how in the world does this even happen?
Yeah, I don't know. And, you know, if I'm Mike McConville's crew, I'm going to be livid over something. I think AJ Henderson right now scored as the winner of this race. So if I was a pit crew member in that 03 pit, I would be raising hell down there in the tower saying that we won this race. But nevertheless, we are going to move into a new server. We'll have the exact same starting grid as what was in this race. So we will get that to you in just a moment and have a complete flag-to-flag coverage. You know what you love about FTF? You never know what you're going to see, or you may not be able to see anything. You just never really know when you come out here. So we will be back in just a couple of moments. You're watching the FTF Super Speedway Series live on STN.
Ignition. Autopilot activated. 100 miles per hour.
Why don't you come on? I can take you for a ride. Why don't you come on? We can drive away tonight. Why don't you come on? I can take you for a ride. Why don't you come on? Tonight's the night.
Well, we just love Super Speedway Series racing so much that we tried to do our own impression of the 2013 Aaron's 499. Unfortunately, the drivers just weren't up for it, so they begged us and pleaded with us to get a new server, and I guess that's what we'll have to do because, nothing says being able to be a wheelman than not trying to drive these cars in the dark when you literally can't see anything. But nevertheless, we had to cater to their demands. We threw up a new server. We got the sunlight out so that they can see where they're going. We got the grid set. We're just about to get rolling here. And again, set for 70 laps here at Daytona. So a long night becomes a little bit different. But, that's part of what we come to expect here at FTF.
What, you don't like racing into the void? And trying
Yeah, exactly.
to see? Yeah. It's kind of difficult in the void to see where, at the cars, walls, the track, grass, fans, the ice cream man, stuff like that is, very important stuff. But I have to say it's been an interesting series so far. It should be an interesting race now with that extra wrinkle added in.
It should be, and of course, maybe in, just trying to replicate in 1987, if we did a night race in 1987, that would have been the condition that the track would have been in. No lights to speak of. So, nevertheless, we're just waiting for the last couple of cars to get loaded in here to get ready to go. But the one thing I guess we'll cover before we get started here is having a delay like this, whether it's rain in real life or any type of delay here in sim racing. I think it kind of just naturally raises the temperature a little bit of everybody. Everybody's a little more antsy. Everybody's ready to go. And after a buildup of a little bit, we're going to get going green. And then all of a sudden, we kind of delay it a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some very aggressive racing in the opening laps.
I wouldn't be surprised either, especially with the field. It's just a matter of where will the aggression come from? Will we see it up towards the front early on where drivers try and battle and tangle up for the lead? Or will we see it towards the back where drivers want to get track position in quickly? Here with 70 laps on the docket for tonight. It's just a matter of it all comes down to the preference and comfortability of, do you want to run at the back or do you want to run to the front of the field? So we'll have to see where drivers feel more comfortable based on how they did in qualifying and where they want to be for this race to try and stay out of trouble, or try in some cases show that they're one of the best when it comes to driving these tracks, since many of them like to be at the front to showcase that and to make sure they don't go flying in the air like Justin Malloy just did.
I doubt they'll want to do that, but I think you're exactly right. Track position is going to be key, especially if you're experienced with this car. It's just going to be so much easier to be out front. And again, with what this car provides and what it can do, you're more than capable of being able to break the draft, pull away if we get enough green flag laps under our belt. That you can definitely do that in these cars. You see even just in practice how difficult it is, how these cars are sliding up, doing all sorts of things. So it's going to be a little bit different. One thing to note, though, it is going to be a little bit cooler. We qualified with the 111 degree track temperature. We're at 90 right now on the track temp, so we've given these guys a little bit more grip to play with, so all the sliding around may be a little more controllable here in this race. So I guess all the sliding that we were seeing in that last practice may not be as present here, but regardless, these cars with that takeaway in temperature, they are going to go faster for sure. So that only just makes it more difficult. So what the challenge these guys are going to have to deal with, we'll just have to wait and see here. But I don't know. Let's. I'm thinking of maybe we're making picks here, Justin. I'll let you start off. As far as I know, it's 70 laps, a long way to go, but we've had enough time to think about it. Who do you think ends up in victory lane here tonight?
We were talking about this a little bit before, and my thought process kind of goes towards this being a Michael Frisch type of night, because Michael Frisch always seems to find his way at the end towards the front in these types of races in this type of car. He's able to stay out of trouble. He's also someone that's smart with his moves and waits until the final 15 laps to show his hand and start trying to fight for the front positions. I think it's the type of night where we see Michael Frisch once again take home a checker flag in an FTF Super Speedway race. We've seen it before in the Gen 6 cars. We've seen it before in various different series across the platform. I wouldn't be surprised to see it tonight.
I would definitely not be surprised to see Michael Frisch end up in victory lane at all. I think that's more of a potential expectation, at least for himself, for a driver that kind of prides himself on winning races in this car, whether it's on a plate track or or any type of track. He loves these cars and he wants to go do well with them. But you know what? I'm looking at somebody a little bit different. He has run this car a fair amount, and you know what? I'm going to look at Kevin McAdams to maybe bring it home. He just came off a career best 20th place finish in the FTF Cup Series since it's moved over to iRacing. He finished 20th a couple of weeks ago. Didn't have so good luck at Nashville. Finished 34th, so didn't quite match that career best and get that second top 20. But, you know, I really think that McAdams is going to be one to watch here. He likes this car a lot. He was pretty active in the firecracker stuff last year, so I think he's one that maybe will end up in victory lane. So we'll look through the starting grid here. We'll continue to roll on again. These are the cars, the exact same order that we had in that last session. As we look back behind row 5, Kyle Riley, Jack Painter, a couple of names. And again, a lot of these drivers, I think it's Derek Justice on back, starting 27th and behind on the grid, elected not to take a time in qualifying. So everybody behind them either didn't make a lap or they voluntarily wanted to start from the back. So it'll be interesting to see with not exactly 3 lanes in play. You can go 3 wide here, but you can't do it for very long. Making up track position and making those moves, finding slots to try and pass people, it's going to be pretty difficult with this car at this track.
And drivers going to have to be very, very patient is going to be the main key thing as a result here, where we talked about it, where drivers may elect to try and run towards that bottom line for the speed or the comfortability. Others may try and charge up on the top line once everyone gets into a rhythm. We may see, if we get a long enough run, drivers try and break away from the pack, because I've seen in some cases, Blake, drivers be able to do exactly that if they stay in a line and work together. So those are going to be some key things to think about when the green flag flies here in just a few moments.
That very famous hotkey, stay in line and work together. We'll have to see. I wouldn't be surprised if a couple of drivers at the front of the field are able to do that. Saw a couple of mentions out there in chat. Brandon Hawkin is a potential favorite to bring home the victory tonight. That's definitely a good pick. Dark horse Ryan Pandascio. We'll see if Ryan can do it. He starts all the way back in the 33rd position, so he's pretty much shotgun on the field. But it's a long one tonight, 70 laps here at the Daytona International Speedway. And we can see them now as they come off the banking in turn 4. That new iRacing.com pace car going to pull onto the safety of pit lane. Sean Butler, who would be your points leader if he were to finish up front, gets us started. Early jump, and we are green here from Daytona.
And a great launch from Butler up at the front, easily through the gears, and quickly jumped up the top line, in fact, to make sure Michael Frisch got right in between, to make sure he didn't try and get a run on the high side for the race lead. Already a bit dicey towards the front couple rows.
Very dicey indeed. Again, that 10-degree spoiler, that means that thing is flat, and there is not a lot of downforce in it as they work through the gears. They're already up to full song, nearly to 210 miles an hour. Move for third coming in here, the 97 of Brandon Hawkin, not content to ride in line. As you see, the car is bottoming out there on the bottom. Butler up the hill, everybody moving up as Jake Poulin's nearly into the wall. They're going to scatter around him, so it's going to be an eventful lap 1. Butler's going to lead, but he has a long line of cars looking to challenge behind him.
At least 3 or 4 different drivers, I think, nearly spun it off at turn 4. One driver sliding up into the racetrack, off into the grass, in fact. I believe it might be towards the back for a caution flag. The 91.
The 91 is turned over. Derek Justice has ended up on his lid. He somehow got turned and all of that, but the caution flag is out for the first time this evening, and there were a couple different incidents that happened there. Justin Malillo got out of shape. Derek Justice got in the wall when he was looking at, I believe it was Isaac Johnson getting a little bit out of shape in front of him. AJ Henderson looks like he had some pretty hard contact with the outside retaining wall, and so very early on here, we did make it through lap 1, but lap 2 was something to be desired. We had a couple of different wrecks here.
Yeah, but it really started off from about here. You see Malillo gets into the outside wall, gets out of shape to the point where it gets into Dylan Norwoodney's car. He slides up into traffic and right into the racing line. That destroys the back part of the field. Then they wrecked around where Malillo was, I believe, just as they started flying up in the air in this section. So 2 different major incidents break out at about the same time.
You're exactly right. You had that incident that started all the way back there, kind of in reaction, and obviously that one car that went way wide there and came back up onto the racetrack. That was, unfortunately, our good friend Dean Natters. He took a really hard hit as he was trying to get out of the way there. Leo Makula, he just had nowhere to go. The 78 piles on in. That's Nick Hansen. He has nowhere to go. But this is kind of around where that second wreck started as well. You see Derek Justice. He gets into the outside wall and just eventually runs into it enough that he ends up on his lid. I think he's able to drive away and eventually turn that thing over, but he's going to have a pretty significant amount of damage in that Baskin-Robbins Ford.
Yeah, with how hard he hit that wall, he might actually have to use the fast repair this early, which is not to be desired. Let's put it that way. But it looks like several drivers electing just to come into the back of the field and top off on fuel, it looks like here. Just get a little edge on the strategy here, especially with how these cars burn fuel around this racetrack.
Yeah, these cars do not get great gas mileage. I mean, the current cars really don't either when you think about it. But these definitely eat away at fuel in a way that makes it pretty important on fuel strategy. I got to say though, I would not imagine that we're gonna be green much longer. So I wouldn't exactly think about coming down and getting fuel, giving up all that track position, because I think a little bit of what we're seeing now is what we're going to see for a while in this race. But we are the 1987 cars. We are at Daytona. Depending on whether our restarts are single file or double file, whether we stay true to 1987 and have the lap cars on the inside and everybody else on the outside, or whether we're going to stay double file, that'll really influence things here, particularly on these restarts. We talked about it earlier. You have to hit the clutch to shift these cars. You can't, there is no magic, as Mr. 4Speed would say. So you need to be able to get through the gears pretty well, and it would make that harder if we were single file, but we are going to stay double file for these restarts. So that brings up another challenge in it that you have to make sure you're on it. And even these early restarts, we saw the pace car dive on a pit road and immediately the green flag came out. So there's not a large restart zone or a buffer zone here at this version of Daytona.
Yeah, very small box. We just passed by where the restart zone is. You can see it's maybe a couple car lengths. That's about it, the difference here. But drivers are getting all set to go here, and it looks like they're ready to shuffle around and get ready for what's expected to be an error. Crazy restart with a double file. Keep in mind, this is in line with league rules for FTF action here for these respective competitors.
And it does keep it consistent with the rest of the running of the series, so we will have double file restarts for this race. Sean Butler up front, Brandon Hawken to his outside, and second, Michael Frisch, Kevin McAdams, a couple of drivers that we were talking about early on that we expect to be awfully strong. Tyler O'Neill, don't sleep on that Coca-Cola Chevrolet. I wouldn't be surprised to see O'Neill run well. He does a lot of the racing in these cars when they go to the plate track, so he's someone that is pretty experienced with them. But otherwise, Justin, I think experience is going to play here, and we're just going to have to see if we can ride this one out. Again, long ways to go here. 70 laps it definitely goes by quicker when you're going about 220 into these corners, but it is a pretty lengthy race. Couple of green flag stops in there. So if I'm most of this field, I'm thinking we just need to settle things out for now. We could try to sort things out later.
Exactly. If they can settle down and keep calm and press that hotkey, then they're in a good spot. If they end up trying to go 5 wide off the corner or end up bouncing off the walls, we may see a replica of lap 2 of this race. So it's the matter of, will we have a clean run? Let's find out.
Let's see. Pace car going to pull off. Butler in control of the race lead. Very quick jump for him, and we are green at the World Center of Racing. Butler able to get out by about a car length over Frisch. He has drafting help from Tyler O'Neill. They get right to the back bumper of Sean Butler, who, again, we mentioned how tight these corners can be, how having someone directly behind you could loosen you up. You won't see it as they get up through the gears here and get up to about 190 miles an hour off the corner, but we'll see down the back straightaway here what Michael Frisch is willing to do is he's going to get right to the back of Butler and push him forward.
Yeah, I think right now he's going to actually ditch him. Had to block the bottom line as Brandon Hawken wanted to try and get underneath him. So Butler forced out onto the top line. This is not what I think Butler was expecting off the restart here.
No, that was an aggressive move there by Frisch. Brandon Hawken wasting no time. We've seen it a couple times already that he is willing to go to the front. He's already going to look low on Butler. May look to go low on Frisch here for the lead, and he is going to do just that. The 97 of Brandon Hawken not wasting any time trying to get to the front. Frisch is up the hill, and it looks like they'll be side by side as O'Neill and Butler nearly make contact behind him.
And for Brandon Hawken, he's known a lot in many circles for being good on the road courses on the iRacing service. Has won major championships when it comes to this service, including opportunities to run in real life after opportunities with Porsche. We've seen him in FTF, though, be really good at the short tracks as well as the caution flag is out.
Caution and a big wreck behind them. This was off of turn 4, which just in these cars seems to be a big trouble spot. Brian Keita looks like he ends up in it as well. He was well behind this wreck. Where did this start? It looks like, oh no, the Brian Hicks driving experience not going so well tonight. It looked like some contact with he and Clint Roberts off of turn 4 really started this. And, you know, someone who's run this car a lot, that safer barrier kind of jets out on the exit of 4. These cars really like to push up off the corner, and I think that's exactly what happened to Brian Hicks. Just got really tight off of turn 4. It doesn't make it any easier when you hit the apron. I think he may have scraped that as well. He goes right into the 87, and around Brian Hicks goes.
Yeah, that apron, as soon as he hit it, I think just jetted him out hard. He was hard left the entire time as he slammed up the racetrack and into Clint Roberts. Just nowhere for the rest of the drivers to go as they had to scatter around, some of them into the grass to make sure they didn't pile up and join the two up against the outside wall.
You see the rest of the field able to scatter around. One car kind of gets into it late there, gets into the back of the 87. I believe that was Leah McCullough. He was involved in that first caution. He gets a little bit of damage there. I
think that was Brian Keita, actually, in the 711, who's now blown his motor as a result here. I believe.
Yeah, Brian Keita.
Yes, in similar cars. Just almost looked like when he hit the brakes, the car started shooting hard to the right, and he tried to pitch it hard to the left, but not enough time to react back.
No, he came in there way late in that Wild Cherry Pepsi machine, and that's kind of something that these drivers are having to deal with now. He's driving right through the smoke of Brian Hicks, which is a new addition here in iRacing. They did adjust the smoke to where it's much more realistic to where you're blinded when you're going through this wreck, and you'll be able to see a nice onboard shot right here on our gyro cam off the corner, and there you see it. Smoke, smoke, smoke. Can't see anything. Boom, there's a car right there. So that is, I know everybody wants to probably call that just an ARCA brake special, but really there, it's much more difficult to see there. You were blinded by that smoke.
You almost have to take a guess and pick a line and hope that it clears up, and that's been talked about by drivers like Anthony Alfredo in the past when it comes to sim racing, where you need to make that decision. And unfortunately, when they're hitting the brakes, the decision was, okay, I think they're going to roll down the racetrack. They didn't roll down the racetrack in that situation.
They did not, and because of that wreck, you're going to see a lot of fast repairs being used once again. A good portion of the back half of the field already making use of that fast repair, not even 10 laps in. I believe, Justin, we may be at the point where, I still think we haven't seen the end of our yellow flags, to say the very least. I think we're going to be at this for a while. So if you have a car that is very mangled, very destroyed, I almost think of keeping it at this point, because I just don't think we're going to see the end of a couple of these cautions for at least the next little bit.
Yeah, a couple drivers, I think, like Clint Roberts, who were just involved in an incident, Nick Hansen, who was involved in one of the early incidents, holding on to the fast repairs, Andrew Hardcastle as well in the 22 machine. The tough part's going to be the drivers who have already blown motors or rode the wall or flipped upside down in a couple cases nearly. They have no choice, and that's the tough part, is how do you play the rest of this race if you have been forced into a box? And that's the case for drivers like D-Nads in the 91 machine, like we've seen AJ Henderson, like we've seen a couple other drivers where they're in that tough box now. So I wouldn't be surprised to see, especially drivers like Derek Justice in particular, them ride in the back until the closing stages now, because they've got no choice. They run to the front and get involved in an incident trying to get to the front, let's say. They're likely done for the race, and it's a huge shot in the point standings for them that sees them go down early on in the season.
That is going to be the case. You even saw D. Natters there on pit road. He was working his way off. He has used that fast repair. So he is I don't even think he's gonna make the restart here. That might be a safe option for him, though. As a pace car, you can see Natters there in the middle of 1 and 2. Pace car is nearly going to be pulling off here in just a moment, so he may miss the initial restart, but again, he may just be able to log some laps here if he's given the opportunity to do so. So this time it's going to be Brandon Hawken in control of the field. He was able to wrestle the lead away from Sean Butler during our brief last run, as we're going to work past lap number 10 and on to lap number 11 here at the World Center of Racing. Hawken and Frisch, your top two. They get a nice jump. Green flag is out. Butler helping Hawken there on the bottom. Tyler O'Neill tucked up right behind Michael Frisch as they head off into one.
Well, Sonny was right underneath the back bumper just about, and he was trying to push him so hard there, but that bottom line just is the preferred line all the way down to the back straightaways where we've seen it really shuffle around. If you lose that yellow line or leave that line, drivers have been immediately trying to dive their way on forward, or you can be Sean Butler and make it 3 wide.
Butler's going to go up the middle 3 wide. Again, 3 wide into these corners. That's a tough ask, and we're going to see Butler. He makes his way by Michael Frisch. He's going to pinch Brandon Hawken down on the bottom. Hawken with a little bit of a slide. It was an aggressive move there for just being after a restart, but Butler, it works out for him. He gets the race lead as we work around to lap number 12. He's got great help from Frisch, and right now Hawken, not a whole lot of help there from the 26 Wendy's machine, and I love that paint scheme that Kevin McAdams has. That Wendy's scheme is nice. As Tyler O'Neill into the wall behind them. That's going to make it 3 wide. Here comes up the middle Matt Wishart making his way on by.
And there's McAdams with the help, in fact, as well here on the bottom line. So keep in mind when it comes to drivers like Butler, he's talked about in the past too, that he likes to be up at the front and really be in tempo and control of this race. He tries as hard as he can, but look at how scattered they are now behind O'Neill after smacking the wall, lost a ton of momentum, and now I think he's in trouble here with even that little bit of damage that's now made everybody want to pass by him on the low side.
Hey, he went from 5th to 12th in a matter of a lap. He had a little bit of contact with Cosme Ionescu that sent him up into the wall. They're looking 3 wide off the corner. Here comes Brandon Hawken, Michael Frisch. They're 3 wide, but a caution comes out just as it was getting good there up front. And we'll see exactly what the culprit was. But unfortunately, caution flag is out here. And That's unfortunate right there. You can see a car there on the apron limping around, trying to make up time. That is Kyle Short, who was there on the bottom, and what was mostly I think he was having some connection issues and ended up getting turned or wrecked in some form or fashion, and that ended up being enough to send him over.
I think so. With technical issues, a massive, massive issue going to be happening in the situation where I don't think anyone knew where he was, and I don't think he knew where he was. You see him come up right there into the traffic, flips upside down. Several drivers forced to scatter around and guess where he's at. Just not the best of situations, unfortunately, for Kyle Short. And keep in mind, he was one of your top drivers in the point standings entering today. One of a few drivers who have shown some good speed early on in both the races. Now, he's in a tough spot, to say the very least, after that.
He is. He's in a very tough spot here as we work caution flag number 3 here. Lap number 14 we'll see this time by. If we potentially get a pit stop here from our race leaders, they have yet to come down pit road. We mentioned that at a certain point, fuel and of course tires here are going to come into play. You do not want to stay out too long on these tires. It will punish you. Hawken looks like he's going to stay out, and Butler is going to bring most of the field with him. So split decisions here. Hawken, Kevin McAdams, a couple that stay out. The rest of the field are going to come down pit road here. So we'll see how they shuffle off of pit road. Butler going to come down to the service of his crew, which again is much true to form. Not exactly going to be the 12 or 13 second pit stops that you would see in real life in the modern day Cup era. Going to be much closer to about 20 seconds or so, which even for 1987, 20 seconds would be one hell of a pit stop. But obviously iRacing kind of made the gap or the spread of time smaller, so you're not losing a ton of spots on pit road. So Butler is going to beat Frisch off of pit road. He exits with the race lead just as he entered. And before we get going once again, we'll go side-by-side action here on STN.
iRacing is a sim racing game that combines a true-to-life racing experience with an online community of virtual racers from all around the globe. iRacing offers a multitude of officially licensed cars and tracks, laser scanned with millimeter accuracy. Their car models and mechanical systems are based on real-world physics, engineered in cooperation with manufacturers and race teams. Their skill license system ranges from rookie to pro, ensuring members are always pitted against those with similar skill sets. Members are able to sign up for a weekly race series, compete in time trials, host a private race with friends, and participate in racing leagues created and run by the community. With over 170,000 members, iRacing works in partnership with renowned motorsports organizations like NASCAR to deliver virtual races based on the real-life NASCAR Cup Series, as well as many other series on the NASCAR ladder. iRacing also features team racing, providing a variety of options for members to create and manage their own teams. Race with friends or real-world teammates in full-length endurance events like the 24 Hours of Daytona, Spa 24, or the Bathurst 12 Hour. Additional partners include IMSA, World of Outlaws, Supercars, and IndyCar, allowing members to race in their very own Indianapolis 500, Bathurst 1000, Chili Bowl, and many more iconic events. This is iRacing, delivering the most authentic racing experience short of getting into a real race car. Sign up today at iRacing.com.
This edition of the FTF Super Speedway Series, except it's not on Saturday nights, it's on Friday nights, is brought to you by Camping World, because everything's brought to you by Camping World these days in the world of racing. But nevertheless, Brandon Hawken, your race leader, they stayed out on old tires, and it looks like McAdams on the outside there also stayed out on old tires. Butler was the first one off of pit road, and it looks like he's going to be restarting a couple rows back, looks like about the 11th position. So we'll see the mixture here between old and new tires play out as the pace car going to pull off of pit lane, and Hawken going to control the field as we once again get him cranked up here from Daytona. Pace car is off and green flag is out.
And a massive, massive launch from Brandon Hawken. Really good launch for him, but the question is, will everyone close up too quickly here? It's going to be very difficult, I think, for him to try and hold on up here, especially with McAdams with a big boost off the corner.
McAdams with a huge launch there. He's going to use that draft to pull all the way to the back of Brandon Hawken. He's going to look low again. Wow, look at Derek Justice there. No help. He's going to go right around the outside of these two. McAdams and Hawken starting to get formed up. But how about Derek Justice making that high side work here? One couple cars in the outside wall, and one is going around. Brian Hicks is involved, and no, that's a big crash.
Kenny Brady up in the air. Wow. I'm pretty sure that's a majority of the faster pairs gone.
Yeah, I was about to say a lot of these cars were already in the back of the field, didn't exactly have their fast repair in their back pocket. They already used it, and it looks like it was Brian Keita who was in the outside wall. Brady tried to go around him as he was stuck into the wall there, and that just wasn't a good situation. Kenny Brady just gets launched off of the safer barrier, and again, it's amazing how long these wrecks last. My goodness.
Yeah, they were 3 wide, a couple rows deep into the corner with some of the drivers on fresh tires and off from the pit lane. And you talked about it. It's a recipe for disaster in some cases. And Brady really tried to carry a ton of speed to drive by the car that was up against the wall, but just clips him there. This gets him a bit more squirrely. He was already loose in the first place, and it's enough to shoot him down the racetrack and right across traffic. And this just causes the big one.
It does, and you could see, again, cars continuing to get tangled up. Well, after the incident, you see Dean Adders, he already used his fast repair. That is going to be more than likely the end of his race. You see Jake Poulin is involved in it. A lot of heavy contact, a lot of smoke. And very early on, you think about those 2 fast repairs, we are already at a point where many drivers have already used both of them. So that is unfortunate for those drivers, as they have a very early exit here at Daytona. And you see another look here at what happened to this wreck that was happening kind of in front of it. Man, there were some cars that took some really hard licks there.
Yeah, a couple of them going upside down, adding to the flip counters throughout the entire FTF competitions. But just way too high up the racetrack was the 711 machine in that circumstance. And I think that just, again, bottled everyone up and forced some of the moves there we've seen. But for others, it's hard to get by and choose a line when you have cars flying across the track. We're talking about what was essentially, when you go all the way to the inside wall with the grass, maybe a 15-wide incident in terms of car lengths and car widths, rather. You're not avoiding that incident in some circumstances unless you're really lucky. And now, as a result, the back half of the field demolished.
That's exactly the case, and again, only 1 fast repair is on board, and again, many had already used that were in the back of the field. So the rest of the drivers are either going to have to repair them up on pit road, do what they can. Again, these cars, probably more than any other on the service, are known for being able to at least survive with a lot of damage. You may not go fast, but you can at least continue to make laps around here, and who knows, with everything we may see tonight, could probably still end up with a somewhat decent finish in this one. But a couple of drivers going to have to take some lengthy repairs. Brian Hicks sitting on pit road, Andrew Hardcastle also on pit road right now, and they're going to get going just before the pace car comes and laps them. Actually, 22 is not going to make it, so he's going to go a lap down. Hicks is just going to beat the pace car off of pit road to keep his spot on the lead lap. But it seems as though that number 3 Goodwrench Chevy probably has quite a bit of damage on it, as the lights will go off. One more trip around, and we were talking about this staying out coming down pit road, what was going to be better? I think the more wrecks we see, the more Brandon Hawk and Derek Justice and company that elected to stay out on that previous caution, they're going to be in a better spot.
I think possibly as well. And as long as they can stay up here, I think they're in a great position to be able to hold on to the positions until everyone else has to come down again and make sure they're good to go on fuel and tires. So that might have been one of the smart calls to make here is, yes, David running the back. Yes, in the circumstance of Derek Justice, he's got no more faster pair to hold on to. This gets you in front of what's been a crazy back half of the field so far tonight. So this might be the move that gets them in the conversation for the closing 20 laps of this race.
That will be the case. And by the way, I think we had I was thinking we maybe had an engine expire. I was looking at Kenny Brady very slow on the back straightaway, but now he's speeding back up. So that may have been a false alarm right there. But nevertheless, we will work off of 3 and 4 after working caution flag number 4 of this young evening. Still a long ways to go. Nearly 50 laps, right at 50 laps when we take the green flag. Pace car going to pull off, and it'll be Hawken. Derek Justice, your top 2. As you see Ethan Corder right there, he barely made the race. He was going to try to give Hawken a big shove, and look at how far Hawken is able to get out. Nearly a car length or more over Derek Justice as they barrel off towards turns 1 and 2. Hawken with the lead, Derek Justice in sight.
Great launch for Brandon Hawken once again here, but as we've seen, drivers have not been willing to work with Hawken, it seems, so far tonight. Big push there. Corder actually pushed so hard, it pushed him underneath the yellow line, and that's going to lose him tons of spots.
Going to lose him spots indeed, and Hawken had to go through the block. Oh, one car is into the outside wall, and he didn't roll over, but now he is going to take out some cars with him. That was Isaac Johnson up front, who got into the outside wall and rode the wall and kind of came back down. The caution came out before he came back down into the field, and unfortunately right into oncoming traffic. Clint Roberts ran into him, and then from there the rest of the wreck was on. Even Jake Poulin got some pretty heavy contact as he was running through the back of this thing. But already lap number 20, caution flag number 5.
Almost looked like Johnson, when he bottomed out, just shuffled his car to the right in part there, and I think we're going to see this right here. Try to follow Justice, try to follow tire for tire, went a little bit too high. Right there, it just bottoms out and just is enough to shuffle it up the racetrack into the wall.
It is very hard. There is not a lot of grip here on the outside of this track. It gets very tight, especially in this car when you're not preparing for the load it takes when you're going off into these corners at about 220 miles an hour. So you have to be vigilant. You have to know that if you enter by the wall, there's a pretty good chance you're going to end up in it, because this car just loves to kind of bottom out, shoot up the racetrack over all these bumps that there are, both at the bottom and the top side of the racetrack. So it's one of those things that we keep talking about. Experience with this car is going to be key, and I think you see the lack of it there with Isaac Johnson. Shoots up into the wall, enters high, doesn't expect that tight to come, and then unfortunately is just along for the ride after that, climbs the outside wall, and comes back down right in front of traffic.
Yeah, tough break with no time for some of those drivers to be able to react as cars were pinballing down the banking once again. But still outside the window to make it on fuel. Keep in mind the rest of the way, as this is a blessing for one driver. I believe Kyle Short, who's had the technical issues, is now going to get himself to 2 laps down still. For Short, though, he still needs to fix his circumstances, keep in mind. Oh, and this is going to be interesting.
Yeah, he's trying to make his way by the traffic there, so he's going to try to do all he can just to make it by and log some laps here with his internet connection issues, but that's really all he can do. Not going to be able to race with the issues persisting that much. But long ways to go here tonight. I feel like we've said that a couple of times, but there is a fair amount of driving still left to do. Not even close to the halfway portion of this race, not even a third of the way through. And I think this is where these drivers who are experienced in this car going to do all they can to keep their track position for the time being. And, you know, I think this is something that, especially because this car goes so fast, it's so difficult to drive, that you're going to see a lot of these names that we were talking about early. Not only are they going to be up front, they're going to stay up front. They're going to be able to hold off these guys, even if they're on old tires. They're probably going to be able to do it. And actually, we're just getting some brand new word from Race Control that we are going to flip the script here for these restarts. We're going to go true 1987 style restarts. We're going to go single file for the remainder of this race on the top side. So we'll have single file. Not sure if we'll quite see the lap cars line up at the bottom. I think they'll still be relegated to the back of the field. But this is going to change things up. We've seen a lot of wrecks, a lot of carnage with some side-by-side racing, but this is true to the times. We're going to see single file from here on out.
Yeah, and this is going to make it even more tricky for a couple of these competitors, but we'll have to see, since drivers, I think, are just trying to sort things out. As I think Brandon Hawkin needs to be told, oh, hey, you can go up to the top here.
Yeah, I think, well, there he goes. He's going to go to the top here. So single file means on the top here.
Yes.
Yeah, having to get everybody in order, in line here. But the one thing that this opens up is obviously your track position is much worse if you're in the back. If you think about it, you're obviously lining up too wide. You're much further behind the leader if you're in 30th in a single file line than 30th in a double file line. So that's going to come into play. You're not going to be able to see the leader as easily out of the corner. That's obviously one of the things with single file restarts is vision. But you also have to think shifting issues just somehow seem to, I don't know why, but whenever we go single file here at Daytona, shifting just always seems to go worse for some reason when we're single file. And if that happens, you're pretty much stuck behind the driver in front of you. There's really nowhere you can go. So they work single file off the banking and into the tri-oval here at Daytona International Speedway. Blake McCandless, Justin Prince, and Zach Johnson along with you here on STN as we're going to restart them here for the 5th time this afternoon. Brandon Hawk and Derek Justice. Sean Butler single file as you see a couple of cars already stepping out of line behind them.
Yeah, and this is going to be also one of the more intriguing things to keep an eye on is who's going to try and get a second line going off these single file restarts, because it's more of a natural progression when you go double file. For other drivers now, it's the matter of who's willing to go up there and who's willing to just ride to the old line. The obvious contender for the top line, as seen all the time, Sean Butler with the help of Michael Frisch.
And mind you, these drivers on the top side, they have fresher tires. That is going to be a factor here. It's Justice up and into Michael Frisch. He's going to save it. The 666 is going to loop it back in. And actually, Justice is just going to Alt F4 right there. So he gets out of it. The one car that was out of shape, it was Ryan Williams. And finally, the caution flag flies. Williams was actually able to stay off of most drivers until he barely tagged Brian Hicks rather, coming across the tri-oval. Ryan Pandiccio gets a little bit of the wall, and unfortunately Brian Hicks just not able to save that race car. He's been working on it for so long and unfortunately got some damage.
Yeah, it's not been Brian Hicks' night. When you have no luck, you have none. And that's what the case has been tonight. We'll see with the bar visuals replay here. Justice tried to run the bottom line. You mentioned the older tires. Same type of line almost where he nearly clipped the apron, where Hicks had clipped the apron before. That was enough to shuffle him out of shape. He backs out. Williams looks like he's going to be okay until right there. Just the very edge of Hicks's car just gets into his front bumper, and Hicks gets into Pandiccio, and that causes massive damage again to the one machine.
I got to hand it to Ryan Williams. He was oh so close. He did about all you could do. I always say that spinning a race car, there is a skill involved in it. And Williams, who is turned broadside from the right rear, facing the field about the entrance of pit road, did just about everything right. Hooked the car, tried to get it stopped, locked it, tried to keep it rolling on the apron by turning left and right when he needed to. He barely gets clipped out of it, and actually he may end up better out of it than Brian Hicks did, but he did everything in his power to keep that car on the apron, and that was a fair piece of driving there by Williams to not make that worse and come back up and really get a lot of traffic there through the tri-oval. Unfortunately, that all started with Derek Justice. Once again, we've seen a couple of cars nick that apron. These guys are out of control. And once you hit that apron, this car just loves to shoot up. He goes right into Michael Frisch, who saves his race car, but unfortunately Justice just wasn't having it. He does the old Alt F4 skip to my loo there to get out of the service before he comes back up across the racetrack. He had already used one of his fast repairs, so Justice unfortunately going to go behind the wall. He's going to be out of this race. And as they work it across, Brandon Hawkin, race leader, going to decide to come on to pit road, and he has a couple of takers with him.
Brandon Hawkin actually stayed out here this time. It was about ninth on back, though, who elected to come into the pit lane. So Hawkin is the only driver left who has not taken any tires in this race so far. And I don't know how much longer that's going to work now with it being single file and with some of the drivers wanting to shuffle them around. The rest of the field ending up coming in for those tires, I think, is going to be critical for a couple competitors once they get to drivers like Frisch, Wishart, and Butler and company when it comes to the tires.
We'll see how it goes as we work under the caution flag once again with just about 48 laps to go here at Daytona. Or no, 48, 43. I really need to adjust my eyesight on that ticker. But nevertheless, we'll go side by side, and you won't miss a minute of it as we continue the action here from Daytona.
Of the best sim racers. $200,000 on the line. Who will rise to the challenge? Interlagos, Barcelona, Imola, Silverstone, Road Atlanta, Montreal, Spa, Nürburgring, Le Mans, Monza. This is racing for immortality. This is esports personified. This is the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup.
Back with you here on STN for the FTF Saturday Night Super Speedway League, except it's on Friday, presented by STN. We welcome you along here. Blake McCandless, Justin Prince, Zach Johnson down in the virtual production trailer. It's been a long night, hasn't it? As we continue to work under caution here for, I believe, the 6th time tonight. We'll bring you some upcoming events here that are happening on STN that you surely will not want to miss as they ride single file here. The FTF Grand National Series presented by Bar Visuals. Tomorrow night, Myrtle Beach Speedway. Short track racing has been chaotic to say the least, so you won't want to miss that. Again, coverage of that continues tomorrow night 10 p.m. Eastern right here on STN. The Four Corners Racing League gets rolling off Monday night at 8:15 p.m. Eastern from the Phoenix Raceway. And the second round, second split, you'll probably find me in there unless I can somehow pull 800 iRating out of a hat. The second round of the eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifier Series from Atlanta Thursday night. Second split, 9 p.m. Eastern right here on STN. But the green flag is out. We're single file, but not for long, as Brandon Hawken already has a challenge on the outside from Michael Frisch.
Yeah, Butler just didn't get the greatest of launches there, but here's the thing. Michael Frischke has been willing to work with him all race long. It seems whenever he's on the top line, you find Michael up there. It just seems to be the rhythm and flow of this race. Keep in mind that Frischke also has the help of Matt Wishart, and remember, it was about half a year ago when it came to the Grand National Series that those two drivers hooked up, and guess what? It was Frisch who came away with the checker flag in the Grand National Series race at bumpy Daytona at the time last summer.
And definitely did happen, so we'll have to see if that forms up again here tonight. You have to imagine this may be a good opportunity for us to finally get a green flag running. There are a lot of drivers who are behind the wall, will not be participating in the rest of this race. Nick Hansen, Derek Justice, Kenny Brady, Brian Keita, Dylan Nadwandi, Leo McCula, and of course Corey Carpenter took an early exit. So right now 22 cars on the lead lap, one car to the outside wall. That is Matt Wishart, and they are not going to make it out. The 89 hard contact. You see the 26 of Kevin McAdams is involved in it as well. They continue the wreck here down the tri-oval, and once again 39 laps to go. We have seen this so many times. One car gets tight off of turn 4, and that's just all she wrote.
A really bad bump hit by the 000, I believe, there. Matt Wishart caused that there because he looked like he was going to be fine. He was a little bit higher compared to some of the other drivers for that part of the corner, but as soon as he hit the bump in turn 4 exit that has been catching drivers off guard both in the low and top lines all night, that car just shot up the racetrack. You'll see right there, the car just bottoms out hard, and that's enough to push him into the wall and nowhere to go for some of the drivers as they tried to dodge him, while McAdams, who had just spent a lengthy amount of time in the pit lane and sacrificed track position, also gets involved.
He gets involved. Tyler O'Neill gets a piece of it. A couple of drivers able to work through. The 89 there gets tagged. Adam Martin, he was the one who ran into Matt Wishart there. He was trying to collect it off of the outside retaining wall. You see that wall just sucks you up, and unfortunately when you're Adam Martin, I know Wishart was obviously displeased that he got run over from behind, but it is very difficult to get these cars all of over 200 miles an hour off of turn 4 to slow up to Wishart's speed, because that wall certainly has a way of slowing these cars down when you get into them. We're right on board here after the incident. You see it happening in front. You see all the smoke, and I believe the reason we're on board with this car, it's going to collect some damage, and no, it's going to have a really nice miss right there. A great save and a way to make it through. That was Ryan Pandashio with the driving right there. He's able to maneuver his way through that wreck. So a close miss there for the 63 ends up panning out for him. But once again, caution flag, I believe number 7, I think we're up to now today.
Give or take, but one of the critical things, Brandon Hawken actually pitted. He gained a little bit of net track position from where he was before with this call. Indeed, it is number 7, but the 97, he's going to have the fresh tires of the drivers now who have just come into the pit lane, or rather the first of the fresh tire drivers. Everybody else is taking that gamble, I think, waiting for another caution or two, Blake, before they elect to come down to make sure they're good to go on the gas. Since we're still at 37 laps to go, still on lap 33 for Hawken, there was a chance that if it continued to go the way it is, he might have been in a spot where he might have been forced to take a green flag pit stop, since he was, again, someone who hadn't pitted at all for fuel.
Yeah, these cars, at least from the window I'm looking at, anywhere from 37 to 39 laps is probably what you're looking at to make it on field. Now, of course, we're at lap 33 right now, and it has certainly been the case that not all of those laps have been run under green, and assuming that we may have a couple of yellows coming our way just a little bit in the second half of this race, you'd have to imagine that if you pit right now, you're definitely going to be good to the end on gas. Tires, that's another thing. Obviously, tires, we haven't talked a lot about it tonight because we haven't gotten a lot of long green flag runs, but if we get those runs, it's certainly going to be a case where tire wear is going to become a factor as we see some cars barely beat the pace car out. The lights are off atop of it, so we're on the one to go here. Single file restarts once again. Michael Frisch, Sean Butler, Ethan Corder, who has been just hanging out right here in the top three. Again, he barely made the start of this race, and it did not look like he was going to make it. A little bit of the darkness actually kind of worked in his favor. He was able to make it in, and he's up here running in the third spot. So a solid run there for Ethan. How about AJ Henderson? We haven't really mentioned his name tonight. He started all the way back in the 30th position. He's running up in the top 5 right now, and you have to remember he drove in the Firecracker 400 with a controller, so you'd have to think that now that he's on a set of wheel and pedals that, you know, he may be pretty competitive in this car. You see Jack Painter right there. He was actually, I think, the cause of that incident when we couldn't see the racetrack. He ran right into the wall because he couldn't see it, and all of a sudden he's turned that around to right up here in the 4th position. So pace car going to move off and onto the safety of pit road as we're going to come up just short of approaching the halfway point of this race when we take the green flag. Michael Frisch, Sean Butler, Ethan Corder, Jack Painter, and AJ Henderson, your top 5, as we'll see as we work down here in at about 3:20 p.m. local time in the sim what we got left. Green flag is out. Frisch is on the gas. Doesn't get a great restart, though. He'll stack them up just a little bit. As you can see, the snake of cars all follow him down to the bottom. Sean Butler will get to the back of him, and they're scattering behind him. One slow car, I believe, missed a shift. That was Mike McConville, who's fading there a little bit. But nevertheless, we get through turns 4. Hawken looking to the high side of Isaac Johnson, who's right in front of him.
Yeah, and that missed shift and a couple other drivers who just didn't get a good launch, I think, just started up that bubble of a couple drivers being able to try and break away here. But the matter is going to be how quickly can they close out the difference. 6 miles an hour down the straightaway for the drivers 4 on back compared to the top 3 off the start of this run. Well, Hawken, he's trying to gain track position quickly here, Blake. He wants to utilize that top line, it looks like, to try and get around these cars and utilize those fresh tires.
He certainly wants to get out of the muck as quickly as possible. There's really 2 strategies when you feel like you're faster than some guys. You either get well behind them or well in front of them, and we've seen Brandon Hawken has been on the attack all night long, so that is the strategy he is utilizing. As they are loose behind him, Isaac Johnson almost lost control of his race car. They go 3 wide as now he'll let the rest of the field by as he had a pretty sketchy moment there off the corner, but you see right there Brandon Hawken rolling through the center. You see those fresh tires working to his favor. One car to the outside wall off of turn 4. It is AJ Henderson. Isaac Johnson spins to the inside. He's on the apron, though. No caution yet. We stay green, but Henderson was stuck there on the outside wall. The rest of the field comes by him, and getting a little bit of separation there after that incident.
And those are 2 drivers who just had incidents coming through 3 and 4 who had already used faster pairs. So they're in a situation now where their days likely not going great. As look at this up towards the front.
A big move there. Frisch went down low to block. They're side by side for second, 2 by 2 behind them. Here comes Sean Butler, Ethan Corder, Jack Painter, Brandon Hawken, and instead we are wrecking in turn 4. Cosman Ionescu is involved in this one, and I think it was contact, it looked like, with both Adam Martin. Yeah, just Adam Martin. McConville gets out of shape. Martin comes up the racetrack, I think, anticipating that, and the caution flag flies once again.
Very unfortunate caution flag, let's put it that way, with the circumstances there where it's so easy, Blake, and I think you know this best, where you carry too much speed into the corner, you can just absolutely loop it around. And the bar visuals replay will show that McConville's going on his own, running to the corner at 212 miles an hour, then loses the back end. And this causes the Chekhov effect you talked about, where the rest of the drivers try to dodge, and several get damaged. Just about everybody in the back, except for 2 or 3 involved in this one. Hagenstein with a great job avoiding that one.
He really did. And again, that's just a case there where you're not going to be able to run wide open around this racetrack for very long. You see Martin, he barely slides up the track. He's not sure if McConville is going to come up the track, if he's going to continue where he's going to go. So he barely moves up, a quarter of a lane. Unfortunately, Ionescu was there waiting on his outside. So that's just a tough reaction there from the 89. And we'll see it one more time here from Justin Malillo's point of view. You can see he's all the way in the back. I'm pretty sure he has some pretty significant damage, so he's not really able to keep up with the pack. But you can see one car in the wall, and you see the ensuing chaos. He gets it slowed down, and unfortunately just not in time before he gets a little more damage. He'll tag the 84 of Ionescu there through 3 and 4. So another wreck that originates in about the middle portion of the pack. Sean Butler is still going to stay out and maintain his race lead. And, with all we've seen tonight, Justin, I can't really blame him. I don't think you want to risk going back there. You may have the old tires, but at the end of the day, he still has that fast repair in his back pocket. He's got a mulligan left to go. So if I were Butler, I don't think I'd want any part of the back half of this field either.
I wouldn't want to be in the back half of the field either at this rate, because you never know when the trouble's going to end up striking with the drivers, with some of the experience levels and just the struggles back there. This has been a race, though, again, where it's been so intriguing to see all this breakdown, and it shows the talent levels for some of these drivers. Butler's shown he's got a lot of talent behind this wheel, as we talked about. McAdams, he's backed up to 4th position. Winters has done a great job as well. Have to give her credit in the 66. Abigail Winters in 7th position now. Once again, has been able to take advantage of strategy. There's been some solid drivers, to say the very least. And don't forget, right before the caution flag, Brandon Hawkins set the fastest lap of the race at 42.6 to try and get some bonus points.
Trying to get some bonus points indeed. Again, old point system here, so even staying out under caution or leading the most laps, that can be the difference between getting some valuable points, of which Sean Butler, he is 4th in points. Directly behind Ryan Naraki, Cosmin Ionescu, Tristan Hagenstein right there. So Butler trying to get all those points that he can, and he's going to have an ability to make up some points on a lot of drivers. You talk about Kyle Short, who's had some issues tonight, Adam Martin, Mike McConville, a couple of drivers who are kind of in pursuit, or at least close by, and he's hoping to make up a little bit of a gap right there to try to catch Tristan Hagenstein, who is our points leader coming into tonight, but by a pretty significant margin. 60 points, even in this old system, after 2 races, is quite a bit. And you see Tristan, he's got a clean race car, and he may not be up front and being talked about, but at the end of the day, it's in these super speedway leagues, it's really just when you don't finish, that's what'll hurt you. If you can just be consistent. Right now, running P12, there's only 3 drivers that have had top 10s in both races that we've run. So if you can finish in that top 10, Hagenstein, he'll have no problem hanging on to that points lead.
I think he's got a solid shot of being up towards the top 3 at the minimum. The interesting point is going to be where if Hagenstein can get himself top 10, I think, try and keep a streak alive. So there's only a couple drivers overall, with the way the super speedways are, 3 of them who have finished top 10. But it just seems to be very difficult, again, for obvious reasons, how this plays out with the unpredictability when it comes to these tracks. And keep in mind the flexibility and adaptability you need to have throughout the series.
You definitely have to be able to adapt. We saw the lights off earlier, and who knows, it might be going so long here tonight that they might turn back off, but we'll hope that doesn't happen. Green flag is out. Sean Butler right now in the race lead, but here comes a huge run for Jack Painter. Big push coming from Kevin McAdams as they go through the high banks here at Daytona, and Just quickly as I say that, here comes Quarter and O'Neal charging back on the bottom.
I think, though, McAdams has a bit quicker pace right now. The tough part is Butler just seems to almost have a parachute effect to the front of his car, even with the bottom line, because Quarter had such a great push from O'Neal on that bottom line.
He did, and I think everybody's starting to realize you don't want to be behind Butler, who's on those older tires. Everybody's starting to form up a line there on the bottom to try and get around him. Quarter goes low to block, nearly cuts across the nose of Tyler O'Neal. Looks like he's going to be able to make it through. Quarter now in control of the race lead. O'Neal trying to find a way around. Butler's still hanging strong there on the high side, but I don't know how long that will last. Man, we just see sparks flying everywhere. Guys are bottoming out. Some good stuff right here.
Yeah, and I think it's helpful that McAdams and Butler hooked together, because those are two friends, once again, who are working on that top line. So, at the very least, Butler's got somebody to work with. The tough part is, though, again, Blake, if this goes green long enough, he, along with Quarter, along with Painter, are in a box where they need cautions to break cautions to make sure they're good to go on the gas. Right now, they can't make it on the gas unless they get some trouble.
I think there may be plenty of trouble to go with that. As you see, big move there. O'Neal shoved up the racetrack there. His Quarter may have moved to the inside. He's going to try to make a move by. You could throw a blanket under those four cars behind Sean Butler, trying to battle for the lead. Quarter, the 818, with a huge run on McAdams as they work into 3 and 4. Butler will go back down to the bottom of the track and move down to block that. I got to say, Butler doing pretty well in those old tires, but here comes Quarter nearly into Butler. He slides off the corner almost into McAdams. A big check up there to avoid a big accident right there. But the 818 awfully aggressive early on, and already here comes Brandon Hawk, and he wants to be a part of the picture as well.
And those are the freshest tires coming through with Michael Frisch now, so you can see how much they're able to just utilize those by sticking a bit better to that yellow line. Now it's the matter of who's going to be able to control the bubble here, especially with the speeds. I think right now that bottom line's working a little bit better.
Yeah, you can see Frisch tucked up behind the 97. You see him lift to not put too much air on the spoiler. That really comes into play later in the run as you see a big slide out of Michael Frisch there. Again, you can shove that car in front of you, take the air off their spoiler, and it can get them mighty loose, and that's what we have seen time and time again there on the bottom. Hawken on fresher tires can't make the bottom work. Here comes Quarter looking 3 wide and down to the bottom. He'll cross up over Brandon Hawken looking for the lead.
What a move. What a move. And that took a lot of finesse to be able to properly do in that situation now. But that's going to hold up a bit of that bottom line as a result. He does have a bit of side and front damage, and you can see that parachute effect.
You can, as Butler gets shoved into the corner by Michael Frisch. And again, with all of this happening, we have seen a 12-car breakaway at the front of the field. The 12 you see on your screen, that is it. Everyone else lagging off the back of the pack, or they have too much damage that they're not able to keep up and continue. So this may be our chance to see some green flag racing. As you see Cosme and Eshu, the slow car there, he gets out of the way, goes onto the apron to let these guys settle it out. So 12 cars now in contention here with 25 laps to go.
This has been a wild race to say the very least here, but right now keeping an eye on one of the drivers who has had some ups and downs. How about Ryan Williams? Remember, in that 666, who did a great job in saving his car. He's in this lead pack, up 20 positions with a chance to try and pounce behind this lead group. They're going back near 2 to 3 wide in front of him. As you see, though, as long as he stays patient and stays out of the trouble, he might be someone who's a threat for top 5 at the end of this one.
Big slide there out of Adam Martin in the back of the pack. He's able to stabilize that, so that will keep us under the green flag. It's another couple of bits of smoke going off here. Cars losing control here at the front of the field. Still side by side, not able to settle it out until the 818 gets up to the back of Sean Butler. You see those 3 cars forming a train there on the top. Kevin McAdams pushing that line along and getting back down to the bottom. So Butler doing a nice job here on the old tires, kind of controlling this race. He can go to any line he needs to, and Butler being experienced enough, he knows that air bubble will help him if he goes to block any line. Quarter, big slide here in the tri-oval. Oh man, how did he save that?
I'm not quite sure, and a great job by the rest of the field to check up there, but that just made a top 3 breakaway all of a sudden as Butler nearly scraped the wall. That allowed that 58 machine to get a great boost to be able to take the lead and control that top line. It's the matter of how long will it take with the rest of the pack to try and close back up. They're going 2:16 down the backstretch.
It's going to take a little bit. You see how much Quarter's little moment there kind of got the pack separated, but just as quickly as they got separated, here they come charging on back. That's Tyler O'Neill, who is sideways off the corner. He saves it, and now just as quickly as they fell off, you see McAdams, you see Quarter is able to catch up. One car nearly into the outside wall once again in the back there. That was Brennan Merza who's able to hold it here. They are approaching Brian Hicks. Slower traffic right there. You see an SU once again. They're going to put him another lap down. You see Brian Hicks well off the pace is going to allow these guys to go on by. But still, this is the stuff we've been waiting for. This is what we've been waiting all night to see. Some good stuff here between some very experienced drivers in these cars.
I think we're approaching a spot where everyone may elect to try and mix things up on strategy again with how well Butler's been able to make things work if this continues the way it's going. Here's the tough part again. It's now up to lap 35 on the stint, including the caution flag laps right now, Blake, for Butler, and lap 31 for Jack Painter, for example. Quarter, lap 27. This is going to be a spot where they need to be careful, but they also need that lucky dice to start rolling for them right now, because even though they got the track position, are they going to be able to keep it for long is the biggest question I think everyone's got right now.
We'll see how long they're able to keep it, as we have now pretty much worked our front pack to a pack of 10 as Tristan Hagenstein barely hanging off the back. You can see Abigail Winter, she's trying her best to try and keep up with this pack as well, but they are just off the tail end of it, but they are duking it out here at the front of the field right now. Frisch still in control. Still side by side behind him, though. Quarter, though, I got to say, Quarter is, I think he may have done a number on that right rear tire. He is sliding all over the place right now.
Yeah, if you look on some of the onboards here, it's been to where drivers are turning more to the right than to the left at this point in the corners, especially Hawken, who's really cooking that right rear tire. He's been really bobbling and weaving, I've noticed, and I think that's why in part he moved to the top lines. He smacks the wall.
Hawken finally gets into the outside wall. It gets loose, and just as quickly it gets tight, so Hawken going to lose a couple of spots. The rest of the field, this has kind of been the difference here. We've seen a couple of mistakes here. Guys get loose, guys running into the wall. I think the biggest difference is the response from the rest of the pack. Everybody up here realizes we're in the front pack. We need this to stay green. So you see Butler there gave Hawken a little bit of room to save that race car, and I think that's been the biggest difference of why we've stayed green. Quarter, again, slid completely sideways through the tri-oval a couple laps ago. Everybody was able to avoid it, keep us under the green flag. You see right there, Tyler O'Neill, a bit of an issue. Quarter tight off the corner, contact made. They still saved it. They are leaning all over each other here at the front of the field.
Yeah, this is getting a bit nerve-wracking almost with the amount of tires sliding to this moment. The fall-off as well, something we haven't talked too much about. Already 1 second of fall-off from these drivers. That's how much these tires have worn out. They're having to go 195 in the corners to make sure they don't lose that right rear. And for Hawken, he's been one of the bigger examples as here comes the dicey moves to making your 3 wide.
Making it 3 wide, but Quarter just backed out of it, thought better of it. McAdams, now he gets loose. He'll chase it up the track. Everybody giving him room. He'll kind of do the do-si-do from the bottom to the banking. One car on the outside wall, and now O'Neill and the 818 get together, and it looks like we're going to stay green. That is on the apron, so no caution. Tyler O'Neill very upset over the radios, but for now, he's not on the track. We stay green.
Yeah, he's still slow on the bottom of the racetrack, though, as I believe Quarter is also off the racing surface. This allowed the top 2 to break away, and Butler's still in that top spot of, okay, I might have to duck down pretty soon. So this may be trouble for Brandon Hawken, presuming how things could fare out here. This is going to be about a 5-car breakaway. Make it 6 in about a moment or so.
It may be, as again, that contact between Quarter and O'Neal sent them both around. O'Neal able to escape with relatively little damage, but unfortunately, he lost the pack. He spun through pit road. His black flag was cleared. He's losing a ton of time. Ethan Quarter destroyed his race car, but he's going to take the opportunity to come down pit road, get 4 fresh tires on it, and use that fast repair. So we stay green, but Quarter, you see him right there on pit road. He may actually be the fastest car on the racetrack here in a lap or so with those fresh tires. But Butler exchanging with Brandon Hawken up front. Michael Frisch. You see Ryan Williams is also caught onto this pack. Tristan Hagenstein, the points leader, holding on in 5th. Jack Painter in 6th. And that's pretty much everybody trying to keep up with this lead pack.
Yeah, and you see the lap traffic. Jeremy Clapper getting out of the way. But yes, I think honestly at this point, if it continues to stay green here, it might come down to Hawken and Frisch, because I don't know if Butler can stretch it all the way to the end here again. That's the tough part. If he can, it'd be amazing. But right now, you have to give Butler credit. He's played this race smart. He's played it well, and it's worked out in a majority of the cases so far for him. Same for Michael Frisch. We've talked about where we usually expect him to come up around this time. He's been up here for most of the time, in fact. And Brandon Hawken's been really impressive. Even though he's lost the rear end a few times, he's been consistently up at the front as well.
He has been, and you have to keep in mind for Butler, we've kind of weeded down the field so much that even if he were to come down, get tires, or have to take a green flag pit stop to take some fuel, I mean, he'd still be getting a top 15 finish. All things considered in a 33-car field, that's not the worst of days, but they are still, I think for the most part, just settling it out here, trying to keep us green with how large of a separation we have here. Again, about 6 cars hanging on to this lead pack. Kevin McAdams actually just caught them, so make that 7. Brendan Mergsta and Abigail Winters, the other cars that have not caught up to it. Adam Martin also as well. Those kind of 3 cars that are all battling at the outskirts of the top 10, trying to catch up, but unfortunately just losing time with how much speed that this front pack is taking. So Frisch up, and then here comes Brandon Hawken. He makes a move by Butler for 2nd.
Yes, indeed. But Butler, as we know, does not like to be content when it comes to just riding 2nd. He wants to lead laps. But the tough part is he's going to have to save fuel here to make sure of everything. I think time this out right. But look at Ryan Williams. He's gotten some runs, and now the clean cars are migrating their way up to the front. We talked about how keeping your car clean is going to be critical for today. We're starting to see that now from forth on back as they're closing up and quick. They're recording some of the quicker lap times in this top group.
Oh, for sure. Not having that damage when you're going this fast is no doubt going to help you go a little bit faster as we ride on board here with Tristan Hagenstein. Again, he is your points leader. Sitting back here in 5th, has just been kind of patiently biding his time throughout this entire race. Again, we didn't really mention him until about halfway through, but playing it smart has paid off for Hagenstein, who is running in that nice little Wrangler throwback car. Nod to Dale Earnhardt Sr. Smolillo gets out of the way, but Hagenstein just, I think he's right where he wants to be. Pretty content to just ride behind this top 4, stay close enough that you have that draft. And of course, when you think about, he may know that some of these guys may have to come down pit road, so that may be another spot in his back pocket as well. But I think for him, he just has to realize the points that are available and just don't push the issue or do anything too crazy.
Exactly. Just, again, maintain patience. You'll get yourself a solid points day. And right now, drivers like Jack Painter, like Kevin McAdams, just haven't been able to close up the gap yet to him to be able to try and make a move here. But with 10 laps to go, Butler is still pushing hard. He's now on lap 46 on this stint of tires.
Butler going down to the bottom, and it has not slowed him up a bit as he's going to try to contend for the race lead here. Michael Frisch going to go to the high side, try and defend that. He's got Brandon Hawken with him. Butler, unfortunately, no help for him on the bottom. He may get trained here as here comes Brandon Hawken on the outside. Ryan Williams, rather than taking that run, he's going to go back and push Sean Butler forward, and that's going to bring him right back into this battle for 2nd.
Yeah, got in a little bit loose, though, again, as Butler, though, as that's going to set up Ryan Williams for an attempt on the high side. Williams, though, has just not been able to carry as much speed compared to the top three to be able to get fully side by side.
He has not been able to keep up as well as now Hagenstein. He's going to go back down for fourth. Perhaps Hagenstein, more than just saving around and just looking to get to the end with some solid points, perhaps tire conservation. We talked about it a lot. Maybe that was on his mind as they have been racing really hard up here at the front. You have to imagine those tires not doing too well. So perhaps Hagenstein has something left in the tank for these guys. As Butler not going to cease in his battle for the lead. He's going to go back down to the bottom, not content to ride in line. You have to think maybe Butler's just trying to increase the temperature up here, maybe cause caution. Is there, you see it right there. He's going to have to come down pit road right now.
Jack Painter also in the situation, so those two now are in a box where they're going to have to hope they stay on the lead lap. Unfortunate for Butler in particular, after being so dominant much of this race, just not able to get the caution flag they were looking for with their longest run of the race coming towards the end, but that makes it now a 5-car pack to determine who can try and win this race. And I think at this point, it can go to any one of these drivers based on some of the moves we've seen. It's just a matter of when the move comes.
I think you're right, and unfortunate luck there. You think you kind of bank your whole strategy on the fact that we've had cautions in relative succession, and then the one time you stay out, it ends up biting you hard. So tough luck there for Jack Painter. Tough luck there for Sean Butler, they're both coming off of pit road right now. And you see Painter right there. He's going to get lapped. Butler's going to come out ahead of this field, and of course Butler's going to have fresher tires, but without that draft, probably going to be going about the same speed as this lead pack. Did not go a lap down though, so did not lose a ton of time there for Butler, and I think the reason why, he actually just took a splash and go. He didn't even take tires right there, so he did all he could to just try and stay in front of this group. So he's actually still on the same set of tires right there. But at the front of the field, Michael Frisch, Brandon Hawk, and Tristan Hagenstein, Ryan Williams, and Kevin McAdams, your top 5. That is it up here at the front of the field. Adam Martin, Abigail Winters, Mike McConville, Brennan Mertza, 6th through 9th, about 12.5 to 14 seconds back of this lead pack. So they're trying to sort it out back there for some points, but up here we're trying to find a winner. And right now Michael Frisch trying to do that with now 6 laps to go.
I think especially when it comes to the race-winning move, it might not come, Blake, until the final lap or so, with the way things have shaped out. But I don't know if it's going to be with some help having to come into play, or if someone's going to be able to get the move done on their own and be able to trick someone out or almost fake someone out from the bottom line in particular. I think right now that's why Hawkins just riding. Doesn't want to show his cards too quickly here. Same can be said for Williams and Hagenstein. Just make sure you're in position to make the move.
That's the case. Do you want to be the leader? Do you want to be second? Do you want to be third? Well, Ryan Williams, he wants to be the leader as Frisch is going to go around. He's going to get contact, spin in front of the field. Caution flag is out here with 5 laps to go. Michael Frisch trying to block Ryan Williams, who dives below the yellow line. He gets into Frisch. Hawken is involved, and the last thing you wanted to see if you were in the top 5 here, caution flag is out. Butler gets saved. Jack Painter, I believe, will be the lucky dog. But will we see a restart here? That's the question.
Yeah, in the closing stages here, wow. But keep in mind, Williams was prerogative to try and go for the move. He had the big run. He wanted to try and be that leader right then and there with the run. It's either you take the run or you try and push someone on forward. He wanted to take the run and just got into the left rear of Michael Frisch in a very bad spot. And overall, it takes 2 of your top drivers and adds significant damage to both of them.
It does. Now, keep in mind, I imagine that Frisch, I imagine that Hawken they have their fast repairs. They've had no need to use those throughout this race, so they should be in a pretty good spot. If you're one of the leaders up here, do you pit? Do you stay out? Obviously, Butler gets kind of saved by the bell here. He's at the back of the pack. I imagine he'd have nothing to lose if he came down pit road and got 4 fresh tires here for the end. Now, staying in line with league rules, because again, this is not a 1987 league. This is a super speedway league that just happens to be using this car in this track combination this week. So what we are going to have here is green-white checkers, and in accordance with league rules, up to 5 if we need them. So strap in, folks. This could be a lengthy one as we get one more look here at Brandon Hawkins and the damage he got in that accident.
Yeah, he ended up using the fast repair, I believe, and everybody, I believe, is now in that spot where we ran so many laps, Blake, that drivers need to take fresh rubber. For Butler, it's going to be the most costly because, again, he was in position up at the front all day long, and now he's put in a box where he's going to have to try and somehow come from 13th to get some good points. Off and away goes Williams as everybody came down and took tires. This caution flag.
Williams going to come out your race leader, Michael Frisch. You can see that fast repair is already put on that machine. He is good to go and will be here to the end. Williams already used his fast repair. Hagenstein has a little bit of damage, so obviously he either doesn't have a fast repair or has not used it yet. But McAdams, I'm pretty sure he's used his. Hawken just came by, used his. McConville has used his. So we're pretty much out of fast repairs at this point for most of these drivers. Jake Poulin, actually, he's a driver who's had a fair amount of damage in this race. He came off of pit road, I believe, in the 8th position. You see, he's got a brand new race car, so he has kept that fast repair in his back pocket the entire time and is showing his card here for this final, what could be final restart, as we're going to go past our 70-lap schedule distance here at Daytona. Looks like a couple of cars going to take the wave around. Ethan Corder, Cosme Yaneshu, Justin Malillo, Clint Roberts, Jeremy Clapper. Just going to be a couple of names that will cycle around. And that is indeed the case. Green-white checker number 1 coming to you.
Now it's going to be where I'm not quite sure how this is going to play out, Blake, because I think at the very least we can make it to the end of the first lap. The second lap, though, off each of these green-white checkers, if we go to multiple, or if we even go to just the one, is going to be crazy, because I want to be surprised to see Williams throw some aggressive moves here to try and hold on to the front. I want to be surprised to see McAdams with some good moves. I want to be surprised to see Brendan Hawken make some dicey moves as well. There are several drivers here who are going to really try and push the issue here in quickly after what just broke down, especially with the contenders up towards the front all day long. This is going to have to be Williams' race of the season so far for 2021 competition on iRacing if he wants to take this checker flag, with how difficult this is going to be and how difficult we've seen it is to control the front of the field, even with single file off some of these runs.
I was about to say, I think Williams has a tougher task in front of him than any other driver on this restart, because if you're the leader, I mean, you also have to look behind you on this restart. You don't want to get too big of a lead and then just have the whole pack run you down and catch you. This is a tough spot to be in if you're Williams. You can obviously control the lanes. When you get in the corners, I think it's good to be the leader. But when you're getting up to full song, we'll see here. I always think you want to look in your mirror back up to Michael Frisch behind you and just make sure he doesn't build up a huge run to where you're having to block a car that's going 10, 15 mile an hour faster than you on the back straightaways. But we'll see it here happen quick. And just as I say it, Williams, he gets a great restart. Hagenstein already over the back bumper of Michael Frisch. So a great restart for second and third. They're going to have a huge run here, but they stall out as they get to the back of Ryan Williams, working through 1 and 2. 2 laps to go.
And I wouldn't be surprised to see the move come into play down that middle of the back straightaway where they try and ditch the 666 if they get close enough. It just seems Williams knows he needs to be very protective. That bottom line is not allowing anybody to do the similar move he had tried to make before.
Well, and Frisch going to try to shove him into the corner again, trying to get him as aero loose as possible on the back of that rear spoiler. If they make it to the white, we'll see it through to the end. Here comes Michael Frisch. He's got a huge run with McAdams. Hawken going to go down to the bottom of the trioval to try to get by Ryan Williams. So we'll see it through to the checkered flag. Michael Frisch now in control of the race lead. He's got Kevin McAdams pushing him along. Here comes Brandon Hawken on the bottom, but he's got no drafting help.
Well, we see McAdams stay with the 58 is the big question. A bad push there, almost shoved Frisch a little bit loose off the corner.
And McAdams is in the wall. That's going to separate him from the 58. Hawken now trying to make a run. McAdams on the outside. He stalls out. He's going to go side by side with Williams. Hawken, does he have one last move in him to try to make on Frisch off the corner? Frisch goes low to block. The 97 in the back of him. Frisch sawing at the wheel to the line. Michael Frisch is going to be able to hang on as they juke him behind. Michael Frisch just sawing at the wheel. Fishtailing his race car is going to be able to hang on, and an early favorite here that we had pegged tonight gets the job done as Hawken nearly made it a race there, cutting below the yellow line. He gets the job done. Michael Frisch is your winner here tonight.
And what a finish for Michael Frisch to hold on in this race. Absolute thriller to close it out. And we were expecting to be a close finish. That's exactly what we got, Blake.
It was. These cars never fail to disappoint with the finishes that they provide. As again, Ryan Williams, I said being the leader there at the end was going to be tough, and it certainly was. It was very tough for him as, again, big accident out of the trioval afterwards. But we'll go ahead and take a look at our results here tonight. Unfortunately, it has a lot of DNFs on it. Michael Frisch is your winner tonight, the Daytona International Speedway. Brandon Hawken comes up just short. 0.013 seconds short of victory tonight. Ryan Williams finishes in third. Kevin McAdams brings it home in fourth. Fifth goes to Mike McConville. Sixth was Adam Martin. Sean Butler rebounded for a seventh place finishing position. Brandon Merdzda in eighth. Abigail Winters, she brings it home in ninth. Tyler O'Neill, who was involved in a late race incident, he ends up rounding out the top 10.
Jack Painter 11th. Ethan Quarter in 12th position. Ryan Pendizio in 13th. From 33rd position, give credit to the 63 machine tonight. Clint Roberts 14th. Jeremy Clapper 15th. Last drivers in the lead lap are Tristan Hagenstein, who crashed the inside wall, and Jake Poulin finishes 17th, a minute and 2 seconds behind. Cosmin Ionishu coming home in 18th position, 3 laps down. Justin Miller, Kyle Short round out the top 20.
And that is tough for Hagenstein, who looked to be set for about a top 5 finish off the last corner, got a little bit loose, and got into the inside. Brian Hicks, 21st. 22nd, Andrew Hardcastle. 23rd was Matt Wishart. 24th, A.J. Henderson. 25th was Kyle Riley. Finishing in 26th was Isaac Johnson. 27th, Nick Hansen. 28th was Derek Justice. Kenny Brady finished in 29th, and Brian Keita rounded out the top 30. 31st went to Dylan Nadwandi. 32nd to Leo Makula, and 33rd was Corey Carpenter after 70 laps here in the Splash and Go Graphics 175. But why don't we catch up here with Michael Frisch? Michael, we tabbed you as a favorite early on. It looks like, you saving that fast repair ended up being the difference between winning and losing.
Oh yeah, coming into the night, just tried to, dominate, and we proved that tonight. But coming into the night, we just wanted to stay up front, and that was the place to be tonight with these 87 cars, knowing how it's just a mayhem in the back. It's like it's a little hard to explain what's driving in the back, but we'll not go there. But yeah, just driving up front all night, dominating. It felt really good to do that for once. I don't do that too often, but yeah.
Well, just kind of talk about, the one thing with these cars, we know how difficult they are to drive, but kind of speak to that, because it looked like, more than usual, you guys were just really, really loose out there tonight.
Yeah, I think in this latest update, they really intensified when you get on somebody's back bumper, you really get the guy in front of you really, really loose. So that played a big factor when you were the leader tonight. You really wanted to kind of gap yourself going into the guy behind you, so you really wouldn't get loose going in, because it happened to me a couple times actually. I had to catch the car going up, and but overall the car is just, you want to be out front. It's really rewarding to be the leading car with these. Just like I said, you're out of all the wrecks. You don't gotta worry about anything besides controlling the lanes.
Well, you did a good job of it tonight. And Michael, I'll throw the mic one more time. Anybody want to give a shout out to? Here's your chance.
Just Ryan and Brandon and everybody racing up there in like the top 7. We really showed that, you know, we can have some good racing with these 87s cars. But yeah, bar visuals as always. Dalen track at Phoenix, you know, he's down there shooting the cars. But and you guys, of course, you guys put on a great show every week up in the booth, and appreciate you guys.
All right, that's Michael Frisch, your winner tonight in the Splash and Go 175. Gets wrecked late, but ends up getting it done and coming up just ahead of this man. Brings it home in second. Justin Prince caught up with Brandon Hawken.
Brandon Hawken, you were someone that was one of the more dominant drivers tonight. Talk us through the closing stages, though, of this race, where you tried to come away with leading the final lap in this one.
Hey Justin, man, that was insane there. In the last half of the race, we were just going at it for the whole time, and yeah, you get such a huge run with this car. So I was trying to, you know, you could defend, but it was also really difficult. So it was hard to tell what to do. But yeah, after the wreck there. I went to the pits, took some tires, and was gonna see if I could make my way up through the field. I had a huge run coming down the tri-oval to the white flag, and you know, like I didn't want to waste it, so I just dove to the bottom. And great job by everybody for making that stick, because yeah, that could have been bad. And then when I got behind Frisch, he did a really great job at blocking, and then I made one last lunge for it in the tri-oval on the start-finish line. Couldn't quite get it, but that was just an overall just a great race, especially with him and Sean and Ryan, and man, that was just great, especially in the last half.
How would you describe the feel of these cars? Because this is not the type of car we normally would see you run in. We've seen you in the Grand National Series competition in the past, we've seen you a lot of the road course cars. How would you describe racing the 1987 cars here, and why you feel you did so well in them tonight?
Yeah, I really like driving cars that, like, you really have to wheel, and I think that's what you have to do with these things. It's you know, there's like big boats, and they're not very responsive, so you really have to wheel it, and especially at a track like this, where like the bumps are insane. You're like bouncing around all over the place, so it's just a super fun car to drive. And yeah, like if all the stock cars were like this, that would be insane, because yeah, these things are just a blast to drive.
Anyone you want to thank for the run tonight to come away with what was a crazy finish to this one?
I'd like to thank everybody at FTF. I know there was a slight issue there with the server, and or a couple of them, and they were able to power through it. So good job to everybody. And oh yeah, shout out to my friend Nick Page. He's coming out with an album on March 19th, Badinage, and so. Yeah, it'd be interesting to listen to that. I have no idea what it's going to sound like, but yeah, it should be really good. And yeah, just you guys in the booth, and everybody for having us on this in this series, because yeah, it's just a really laid back, fun time, and some great racing.
Congratulations on the second place once again, Brandon. Once you get to your preparation for next action, congrats.
Thanks.
Brandon Hawken coming home in second tonight, Blake.
Hawken brings it home in second, and we'll catch up here with Ryan Williams, who had a pretty eventful night as far as drivers in our top 5 go. And you know, you're the leader coming to that last restart, Ryan. I know you were in a tough spot. What was it like from your steering wheel?
Yeah, I kind of felt like I got a good jump on the start, so I slowed up a little bit so Frisch would get to me faster instead of waiting on a big run. And then it was just kind of hang on for dear life and hope that whatever run did come, it wouldn't, you know, blow by me. But coming to the white, they blew by me. So
yeah, unfortunately, there didn't necessarily work out there at the end, but at the end of the day, obviously, really solid points effort here tonight. And in these plate races, that seems to be what you really want to do, is have those solid points runs.
Yeah, and I'm not. I don't think I'm really running for points or anything. It was just kind of for fun. I give Frisch a hard time all the time, so it was nice to race up front with the big boys and beat Derek Justice, the likes of some Coke drivers in the field. So it was a lot of fun.
Any outlook about if you're running GNS tomorrow night, Myrtle Beach? Seems like that should be a pretty interesting race.
Think I will. It kind of depends on my mood, I guess, tomorrow. But I'm sure I'll show up and maybe not make the field per usual. But yeah, we'll see what happens. We'll see.
All righty, Ryan. Well, I'll toss you the mic one more time. Give anybody a shout out you need to.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to my boy Kyle Riley. He's not doing super hot here as of late, so I dedicate this podium finish to Kyle. I know he's up there watching, so.
Awesome. Well, appreciate that, Ryan. Thank you so much. And again, congrats on the last step of the podium here.
Hey, thank you, guys.
And Ryan Williams brings it home in third. And Justin, once we kind of cleaned things up, we really saw, I think, everything that you can just hear the drivers. They love driving cars that are hard to drive.
Absolutely, and that's just what every driver likes. They like to have it where you have to battle with the race car and battle with the conditions, and we've seen that tonight, where in the end, they had to battle those conditions to be able to come away with the checker flag. It was a tough race, absolutely, for many competitors because of those conditions, but at the same time, the talent rose to the top, and we've seen that tonight in that close finish. The differential, keep in mind, 0.013 for two drivers who combined to lead about 40 laps tonight.
Well, controlling the lanes ended up being key. So it seems like Michael Frisch was telling us the truth when he talked about his strategy to win tonight. It certainly worked out. And again, we'll remind you of upcoming events, one of which being in less than 24 hours, the FTF GNS Series presented by Bar Visuals gets kicked off at the Myrtle Beach Speedway. Again, that kicks off at 10 p.m. Eastern. That should be a lot of fun. Short tracks in that series, that is not miss action. Four Corners Racing League gets rolling Monday night, 8:15 p.m. Eastern from the Phoenix Raceway. And next Thursday, the eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifier Series from the Atlanta Motor Speedway. That'll get set at about 9:07 green flag time. So, for our broadcast crew, that'll wrap things up here. For Zach Johnson down the virtual production trailer and my broadcast partner, Justin Prince, my name is Blake McCandless, saying so long from the Daytona International Speedway, where we bid farewell and congratulations to your winner tonight, Michael Frisch. He gets it done at the World Center of Racing.
Reaching out, and my heart is with you. So much in between.